Well, welcome back to another edition of 42nd Street Pete's Grindhouse. And it's been a while since we talked about wrestling. Or I've talked about wrestling. Some people have been PMing me about certain stuff going on. The whole CM Punk jump to the WWE, which is complete bullshit because I really don't see anything in CM Punk. The other thing was that Tammy Lynn Sitch, aka Sonny, was sentenced to 17 years in jail for, I think it was vehicular homicide or something like that. And some people asked me about what I thought of that. It's no secret that Sonny's a victim of the business and a victim of her own demons. Being that I worked with WSU, I saw Sonny, and me and the other videographer, Pete Fiera, walked up to her and said, "You look great," and she did. Segue 6 months down the road to a Jersey All-Pro anniversary show at Atlantic City where she was supposed to be a special guest referee, and she was a train wreck. So, choices are made, and unfortunately she's had a lot of fucking breaks as far as when she was breaking the law and shit, but it's kind of hard to overlook killing somebody or causing someone to die. So I just honestly hope she gets the help she needs because I think deep down inside she's not a bad person. She just got swept up into the bad part of the business with all the drugs and the other shit. So that's that. I just finished reading this, Backlund, which is a really, really interesting book. Pretty much shows how Bob came up from basically nowhere. He was a Midwest farm boy and became the WWF champion. And be honest with you, I wasn't a fan. I was hooked into the whole Bruno Sammartino undefeated type thing. It was a shock to me when Bruno lost to superstar Billy Graham in Baltimore when Billy had pinned him with his feet on the ropes. The subsequent rematch in Madison Square Garden, which I had tickets to, was him against Superstar with Gorilla Monsoon as special guest referee. This is the 70s. I was offered $100 for my ticket outside. I wasn't giving it up. I wanted to see this fight. It didn't disappoint me. But then, of course, if you're familiar with how McMahon Sr. did his business, he had everything planned a year in advance. The deal was that WWF always had a babyface champion and let Graham run with the thing for 9 months. But it sort of went to Graham's head a little bit because he was being cheered in some areas, and this and that and the other thing. So when Backlund took it, I really wasn't that impressed with Backlund. In fact, I was usually cheering the guys that he fought against. But after I read this book and, read what he went through, how he carried the company, how, all this stuff, how he was basically the everyman champion, because the problem was McMahon didn't want any more ethnic champions. Bruno had wanted out. He'd been, champion 2 runs and a lot of years on the road. And Pedro Morales had done a run for a while, but, McMahon wanted an all-American, clean-cut American boy, someone he would have influence on, where with Bruno he had 0 influence. So Bob, held the belt for, I think, 6 years, and then, McMahon Sr. had sold out to Vince Jr., and there was a big change, and of course, he was to drop the belt to the Iron Sheik, and then the Iron Sheik was to lose to Hogan. Bob was approached about changing his gimmick, dyeing his hair black, and joining Freddie Blassie's army, except that Bob had a 6-year-old daughter and didn't want her to have to suffer the indignity of your father's a scumbag in the ring. So Bob quit. Bob went with some other organizations, this and that, and eventually came back in his 40s as Bonkers Bob Backlund. He played a character that was like morally incensed by what was going on with wrestling. Like I said, the book's a good read. I picked it up on, I think I picked it up on eBay. Backlund from All-American Boy Professional Wrestling's Champion, forward by Roddy Piper. He speaks a lot about guys that are, unfortunately, no longer with us and his interaction with them. So, yeah, it's actually a good read. And Bob, now I'm a fan. I didn't appreciate you when you were around, and after reading this, now I appreciate you. I watched AEW, this whole, series that they're doing to have a Triple Crown winner, and last night was the finals. And all I can say is that Bryan Danielson made Eddie Kingston a star. Brian has announced that he is winding up his career at the bequest of his daughters. He told his daughters at a certain point he wouldn't be wrestling anymore. So it was a brutal, brutal fight last night. It was the main event of the show, and Eddie Kingston wound up with the win, the underdog win. And Eddie Kingston will wrestle Jon Moxley for that, Triple Crown thing on the pay-per-view, which would probably be either airing the same day this is airing or airing after it. But it's sort of like, I think Danielson did the right thing. He elevated a guy who needed to be elevated. Thinking that Moxley may do the same thing. Eddie is the guy I least expected to make the big time, and that's not a knock on him because Eddie is a tremendous worker. Eddie had his demons. I met Eddie many times on the independent circuit when I was, doing that stuff in Jersey, and he was always, a go-to guy. I think I said before that one show he basically saved the show by, holding up the crowd while he beat the crap out of Chris Hero because that was the feud that was going on. So, AEW, I'm impressed with that whole tournament thing. I've been watching it. I actually resubscribed to Sling and checked it out. As for CM Punk and this thing that happened, I guess it was the 26th, they had a house show in Madison Square Garden, and the cheap tickets were around $90. The expensive tickets were $1,000. For a wrestling show, hey, fuck the WWE. I'm sorry, that's bullshit. So, looking forward to seeing, how this tournament really ends, and it was really a cliffhanger. It was really some really intense, great fucking wrestling for a change. No bullshit, no interference, there was some cheating involved, of course, but what the fuck, it's professional wrestling. So, definitely worth checking out, and I think AEW is the promotion to watch as far as in-ring action and stuff like that. Maybe the booking is kind of fucked up. Maybe this guy's going to find his way. I don't know, but it was definitely a good series. So that's our show for today. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you on the flip side.